So I want to take a few minutes to talk about Ibanez SR Series Soundgear basses. This is a line of basses that Ibanez started putting out back in 1987, and they are just as ubiquitous and prolific as other models and lines. I personally see them everywhere, and while they are generally acknowledged as being good instruments among the bass community, they aren't revered or fawned over like other classic instruments. So I decided to make a video that addresses Ibanez SR Series Soundgear basses. And even though this video is based mostly on my opinion, keep in mind that I did live and play bass back then, and I do remember a lot of what was going on in the industry at that time. Back in the 1950s and 60s, the US was the world leader in electric guitar and bass manufacturing and innovation. In the meanwhile, Japanese guitar companies' business practices relied more on imitation than innovation. And by the 1970s, they had gotten really good at it. They were even imitating designs that I didn't think could be imitated. They had gotten so good at it that in 1977, Gibson's parent company sued Hoshino, which is Ibanez's parent company. Ibanez and Japanese companies responded by either altering their copies just enough to evade further lawsuits, or by putting out original designs based on what they had learned over the years. The Ibanez musician bass certainly looks alembic inspired, and the Kawai F2B practically has alembic written all over it. Now right about this time, guys like Eddie Van Halen and Randy Rhoads were reshaping the definition of rock guitar and influencing new young players. And Japanese companies like Ibanez were quick to respond to the wants and needs of this new generation of young players. In all fairness, USA Fender responded too, but their efforts seemed a little half-hearted. But the 1980s also introduced a guitar player that would have a much more profound impact on the guitar industry in decades to come. And that player was Stevie Ray Vaughan. You see, back in the late 60s and 70s, many music lovers cut their hair, finished college, became doctors and lawyers, moved to the suburbs, and started a family. And in the late 80s, early 90s, they empty nested and picked up where they left off. But this time, they had a lot more money to love music with. It was the beginning of what I call the Bloomer Booze Boom. The Boomer Blues Boom. Finally. And I remember this time period very well because not only was I gigging professionally, but I was working part-time at a vintage guitar dealer. These blues boomers all discovered Stevie Ray Vaughan, many way after his death, because Stevie reminded them of all the blues and blues rock guitar greats that they grew up with. And not only were these blues boomers playing guitar, they were collecting them too. And these guys were traditionalists, much like New York Yankees baseball fans. The Yankees baseball pinstripe uniforms haven't changed in 70 years because Yankee fans would have a cow over it. Not to mention that the Yankees have retired so many uniform numbers that they're going to have to use punctuation marks soon. Well, blues boomers were traditionalists just like that, and they wanted no part of locking systems and shredding. They wanted traditional guitars and classic amps. And American guitar companies caught on to this fast. I remember working at the vintage guitar shop one day, and they had gotten in a very high-priced Marilyn Monroe commemorative Stratocaster. To me, it was obvious that this commemorative Strat was aimed at guitar collectors and not at working players, much in the same way that the post office used to distribute commemorative stamps aimed at philatelists. And that's when it really dawned on me that Fender was now catering to these collectors who can afford these instruments instead of the working musicians. And who can blame them? I was a working musician back then. I was always broke. And what does any of this have to do with Ibanez SR Series Soundgear basses? Well, it has everything to do with Ibanez SR Series Soundgear basses. Because since 1987, SR Series Soundgear basses have been untouched by any of this retroactive thinking. It's a line of instruments dedicated to the evolution and innovation of the bass guitar. And the Soundgear is a platform, not a model. Nobody ever says, gee, your bass sounds like a Soundgear, because Soundgear basses are a constantly evolving format. They start by evolving the old slab-style bodies into sleek, sexy, ergonomic ones. And they made the necks thin, fast, and easily playable. And the format is open to welcome any new trends or evolutions along the way. The first 1987 Soundgear had a PJ pickup configuration, a very popular choice in the 1980s. But some had this configuration, others have this configuration, and a lot of them have this configuration. Some had DiMarzios, some had Bartolinis, and some have Nordis. Some have this type of bridge, others have this type of bridge. Some are fretted like this, some are fretted like this, some are fretless, and one version has a little bit of both. If anybody wants a good gauge on what's going on new and exciting in the bass world, all you have to do is see what's going on with Ibanez Soundgears. I'm Rib13. Thanks for watching. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel. A big thanks to my Patreon supporters, and I'll see you next time.